Look, being in a relationship, it's not supposed to be a constant roller coaster of emotions. Up one minute, down the next. You deserve respect. You deserve honesty, and you deserve someone who's in your corner, not just along for the ride when it's convenient. I've seen it 1,000 times, folks. People settling for less than they deserve because they're scared of being alone. But let me tell you something. It's better to be alone than to be with someone who makes you feel lonely. We're gonna dive deep into the 8 red flags you need to watch out for in your relationships. We're talking about those subtle signs that, quite frankly, you might be getting played. Have you ever poured your heart out to your partner, sharing something you're passionate about, only to be met with a blank stare or a distracted glance at their phone? That's a major red flag, folks.
That sounds nice.
It's really important to me, you know. I thought you'd be interested.
When someone genuinely cares about you, they're present, they're engaged, and they're interested in what you have to say. They don't just hear your words, they listen with their whole being. Now, I'm not saying they have to be glued to your every word, but come on. A little eye contact, a nod of understanding, a follow-up question. Those are the signs of a partner who's truly invested in you and your world. If you find yourself constantly competing for their attention, feeling like you're talking to a brick wall, or noticing that their eyes glaze over the minute you start talking about something important to you, well, that's a sign that something's not right. It's time to take a step back and ask yourself, is this relationship really fulfilling my needs? Because let me tell you, being with someone who doesn't even bother to listen to you is a recipe for loneliness and resentment. Love is a two-way street, and it's about give and take. It's about being there for each other, supporting each other, and yes, even making sacrifices for each other.
Could you handle dinner tonight? I'm just really swamped with work.
Now, I'm not saying you have to become a doormat or bend over backwards all the time. But when you're with someone who consistently puts their needs first, who expects you to do all the heavy lifting while they sit back and reap the benefits, well, that's a clear sign of a selfish partner. They might be perfectly content to let you cook, clean, and cater to their every whim. But when it comes to reciprocating that love and effort, they're nowhere to be found. And let's be honest here. Who wants to be in a relationship where they feel like they're constantly giving and getting nothing in return? It's exhausting, it's draining, and it's a surefire way to end up feeling resentful and unappreciated. Let's be clear. A loving relationship shouldn't feel like a business transaction. You're not exchanging goods and services, you're sharing your life with someone.
Have you noticed how they only call you when they need something? It's always a favor, never just a chat.
But when you're in a relationship with someone who keeps score, who only reaches out when they need something, who treats you more like an assistant than a partner, well, that's a major red flag. These are the folks who call you up out of the blue, not to see how you're doing, or to share something meaningful, but because they need a ride, a favor, or someone to listen to them complain. And once they've gotten what they need, they disappear faster than a ghost in a graveyard. This kind of behavior is not only disrespectful, but it's also incredibly isolating. We all go through tough times, right? Life throws curveballs, we face challenges, and sometimes we just need a shoulder to cry on.
And in those moments of vulnerability, a loving partner should be there to offer comfort, support, and a listening ear.
But when you're with someone who's emotionally unavailable, who checks out when you're struggling, who dismisses your feelings, or worse yet, makes you feel bad for having them, well, that's a recipe for disaster.
They might offer empty platitudes or try to distract you from your problems, but when it comes to truly showing up for you emotionally, they're MIA.
Now, I understand that not everyone is naturally gifted in the emotional department, but that's no excuse for being completely checked out.
A loving partner will recognize your need for support and will make an effort to be there for you, even if it means stepping outside of their comfort zone.
Love shouldn't feel like a constant battle of wills, and it certainly shouldn't involve manipulation or guilt trips.
But when you're with someone who constantly tries to control you, who uses guilt or emotional blackmail to get their way, who makes you feel bad for having your own thoughts, feelings, and boundaries, well, that's a major red flag.
They might use phrases like, "If you really loved me, you would." Or "I guess I'll just go alone and be miserable," trying to guilt you into doing what they want.
They might try to isolate you from your friends and family, making you feel like you need their approval to make decisions.
This kind of behavior is toxic, plain and simple. It's about power and control, and it has no place in a healthy, loving relationship. When you're in a relationship, you're building a life together, and that requires commitment. It's about making plans for the future, both big and small, and it's about knowing that you have someone by your side who's in it for the long haul.
But when you're with someone who's non-committal, who avoids making plans, who's always hesitant to define the relationship, well, that's a sign that they might not be as invested as you are.
They might dodge conversations about the future, always keeping their options open, or they might make promises they don't keep. And let me tell you, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to build a future with someone who's constantly looking for an escape route. Look, I get it. We all have our ups and downs. We all have days when we're feeling more affectionate than others.
But when you're in a relationship where the affection is inconsistent, where you're showered with love and attention one minute and then completely ignored the next, well, that's a sign that something's not right.
This kind of hot and cold behavior can be incredibly confusing and hurtful. It can leave you feeling insecure, wondering what you did wrong, or why they're suddenly pulling away.
And often this inconsistency is a sign of something deeper. It could be a sign that they're not really sure what they want, or it could be a sign that they're using affection as a way to manipulate you. Disagreements are a natural part of any relationship. It's how you handle those disagreements that matters.
But when you're with someone who refuses to acknowledge your concerns, who shuts down every time you try to have a serious conversation, who'd rather sweep problems under the rug than actually address them, well, that's a recipe for disaster.
They might say things like, "You're overreacting," or "I don't want to talk about this," shutting down any attempt at meaningful communication. And let me tell you, ignoring problems doesn't make them magically disappear. In fact, it usually makes them worse. At the end of the day, you deserve to be in a relationship where you feel loved, respected, and cherished, not just tolerated or used. And if you're seeing these red flags in your relationship, it's time to have a serious conversation with yourself and with your partner. Don't settle for less than you deserve. You deserve a love that's real, a love that's honest, and a love that makes you feel like you can be your best self. Remember, you teach people how to treat you. Don't be afraid to walk away from a relationship that's no longer serving you. You are worthy of love, and you deserve to be with someone who recognizes and appreciates your worth.